Phillip Schofield, one of ITV's biggest stars, quits with immediate effect from the channel. Tonight, he admits he lied to ITV about his relationship with a young man. ITV says they are disappointed by the admission of deceit. We'll have all the details, also on News at 10 tonight. More pain for homeowners as the country's biggest mortgage lenders hikes rates. Will more lenders follow suit? Jailed for what the judge called savage and unbelievable cruelty. The parents of Finlay Bowden sentenced for life. Actor John Cleese speaks to us exclusively about his past experience of being hacked.
I think it's a bit like I felt when I was burgled once. There's a sort of sense of intrusion and you feel slightly soiled, slightly violated.
Panic at 700 feet as a passenger opens an emergency door mid-air on a Korean flight and miraculously the passengers survive. The £170 million jackpot. Who will win football's greatest promotion bonanza from the Championship to the Premier League?
I think the celebrations won't go on just for Saturday. I think it'll be all summer, them enjoying. I think the town will be popping and it'll be a good thing to repay them.
This is ITV News at 10 with Rageh Omaar.
Good evening. Less than a week after he agreed to step away from presenting ITV's This Morning show, Phillip Schofield has now walked away completely from the network after admitting he lied to his bosses and the public about an affair. In a statement he has released to the Daily Mail, Phillip Schofield has confessed to an on-off relationship with a younger male colleague on the This Morning programme whilst he was married and before he came out as gay. In his statement, he called it unwise but not illegal, and he said it was now over. He said he had not been truthful because he wanted to protect the colleague who he had helped to get a job on the programme as a teenager. Mr. Schofield was due to present the British Soap Awards a week tomorrow. ITV confirmed tonight it was all over. It put out a statement saying, "We are deeply disappointed by Phillip Schofield's admissions of deceit."
See you on Monday. Bye.
Bye. For 2 decades, Phillip Schofield has been the face of daytime TV. Alongside Holly Willoughby, he presented ITV's This Morning until suddenly announcing he'd left the show last weekend. Tonight, he confirmed that he's quit ITV altogether, apologising for lying to the broadcaster, as well as his agent, colleagues and friends, about a relationship he had with a younger colleague. In a statement given to the Daily Mail, he said, "I did have a consensual on-off relationship with a younger male colleague at This Morning. Contrary to speculation, whilst I met the man when he was a teenager and was asked to help get him into television, it was only after he started to work on the show that it became more than just a friendship. That relationship was unwise, but not illegal. It is now over." The week began with Schofield's colleagues paying tribute to his career on the show.
We and all the team wish him all the best for the future.
Yeah.
His departure followed what he described as a very difficult time. His brother Timothy was sentenced to 12 years in prison after being convicted of child sex offences, and his relationship with his co-presenter Holly Willoughby was rumoured to be under strain. Tonight it's also emerged that Schofield's been dropped by his agents at YMU, who have represented him for the past 35 years.
This is possibly the end of Phillip Schofield's career, a man who's had a 30-year legacy of presenting, middle market television. He's a rare talent. So this is pretty drastic.
Phillip Schofield will no longer present the British Soap Awards next week, which was his last public commitment. Instead, he says he'll be reflecting on what he calls his very bad judgment in both participating in the relationship and then lying about it.
And Chloe joins me now. Chloe, I suppose the key question is, what is ITV as a network saying about this now?
Well, we've actually heard from ITV just in the past half an hour. They've sent us a statement, and in it they said, "We are deeply disappointed by the admissions of deceit made tonight by Phillip Schofield. The relationships we have with those we work with are based on trust. Phillip made assurances to us," they say, "which he now acknowledges were untrue, and we feel badly let down." They say they accept his resignation from ITV and can therefore confirm that he won't be appearing on ITV as had previously been stated. I think we've all grown used to seeing Phillip Schofield presenting alongside Holly Willoughby, presenting together on ITV, not just on This Morning, but on other big shows like Dancing on Ice. Now, we haven't seen Holly Willoughby since Phillip Schofield's departure, and her colleague said on Monday that she's taking an extended half-term break and that she'll be back sometime next month. When she is, of course, it will be without Phillip Schofield. And he said today that his decision to leave that programme, to leave This Morning, had nothing to do with the statement that he's released today.
All right, I'm sure he's going to run all along the weekend. Thanks, Chloe. Now, in another painful consequence of high inflation, the Bank of England is already considering another interest rate rise to cool the inflation surge. And inevitably, the Nationwide Building Society, the country's biggest, is increasing some mortgage rates by almost 0.5%. If hard-pressed mortgage payers are looking for a bit of sympathy from the Chancellor, he takes a longer-term view. Mr Hunt supports interest rates going up to deal with soaring inflation, even if that nudges the UK into recession.
We've all felt the squeeze. The cost of living crisis has gone on, and recent figures show inflation hasn't gone down as much as expected. The result is that interest rates are predicted to rise, and for those whose mortgages are coming up for renewal, it's likely to be a huge issue. For Cassandra, who's just months away from exactly that, she's facing an increase of up to £600 a month.
I have to pay my mortgage to keep my house for, where my children live and all of that kind of thing. It is going to be a real struggle to find that money if it does go up by that much, because all of our other costs are going up as well.
The Bank of England has shifted interest rates 12 times in a row, from 0.25% in December 2021 to the current 4.5%. It was intended to suppress inflation, which has reduced from 11% in October down to 8.7%, but it is still higher than expected. So now many are predicting a further rise in Bank of England rates to either 5% or even beyond. It means a range of lenders are already pricing that into their new deals. The most significant is Nationwide, who raised their rates today.
I think they'll be deeply concerned because not only do we have the cost of living crisis, interest rates are going up, which means from many angles you're actually paying out more and you're perhaps not taking home as much money as you need to cover those essentials. So looking at refinancing is a great idea, but in reality it might actually not be cost effective for you at this stage.
But the message from the government is that getting inflation down is key, no matter what the consequences may be. Today, the Chancellor, speaking to Sky News, said he would accept a recession if it meant inflation came down.
Are you comfortable with that, with the Bank of England doing whatever it takes to bring down inflation, even if that potentially would precipitate that recession that you've almost just avoided?
Yes, because in the end,
even if there's a recession,
inflation is a source of instability. And if we want to have prosperity, if we want to grow the economy, if we want to reduce the risk of recession, we have to support the Bank of England in the difficult decisions that they take.
Getting inflation down might be a government priority, but for now it still remains high, which will be a concern for people up and down the country. Shihab Khan, News at 10, Westminster.
To a tragic story now, and today at the end of the trial of a couple who beat their baby son to death on Christmas Day 2020, the judge sentenced them to life in prison with these words: "You subjected your own baby son to unimaginable cruelty." Beatings by Stephen Bowden and Shannon Marsden left 10-month-old Finley with 130 injuries. Mrs. Justice Amanda Tipples said Finley's mother and father deliberately failed to get any medical help for him and made sure no one could have rescued him.
Those who loved him say he was a cuddly baby who always wanted to be held. But Finlay Bowden only ever suffered pain at the hands of his parents. Here filmed shopping hours before they murdered their 10-month-old boy, when they repeatedly beat him until he couldn't take any more. Today, his mother, Shannon Marsden, was sentenced to a minimum of 27 years. His father, Stephen Bowden, a minimum of 29.
You both knew that Finlay was very seriously ill and dying as a result of what you had done to him. Yet you deliberately failed to seek any medical help for him.
And this is how both defendants lied to social workers, sending these pictures, pretending that they're home and that they were ready to have Finlay. But behind closed doors, this was the truth. A home where cannabis was scattered next to bottles of mouldy milk, where Finlay helplessly spent the last days of his innocent life. And this was the moment his return home was decided during a family court hearing, one where Derbyshire County Council warned Finlay should only go back through a phased transition, claiming an immediate return would be too soon. But representatives for Finlay didn't believe his parents posed any risk and wanted him home sooner than social workers advised. Now, the agency CAFCAS has today said that Finlay's death was because of his parents' ability to deceive everyone involved in his care. In a story that has shocked so many, even some jurors today returned to watch the sentencing and watch Bowden and Marsden still show no remorse. Finlay only lasted a month in his parents' care. On the morning he died, he was found with 130 injuries, including serious burns, and multiple broken bones caused the court heard by considerable force.
Bowden and Marsden, from the moment Finlay returned to their care, throughout the trial, after conviction, and even at sentence, have never taken responsibility for their actions.
This, a rare moment of peace in a life of pain. So much so, the judge said only morphine would have helped ease Finlay's suffering. But help never came. Sangeeta Lal, News at 10, Derby.
To Ukraine now, where a Russian missile has hit a medical clinic in the city of Dnipro. It was home to a psychiatric centre. The building was engulfed by the fire that followed. 2 people were killed and another 23 were injured. British cycling has become the latest sport to ban transgender women from the female category of elite competitions. Transgender women will be allowed to compete, though, in men's races after their category was widened to a new open category. The most high-profile transgender cyclist, Emily Bridges, accused British cycling of waging a culture war and of being a failed organisation.
A little over a year ago, trans cyclist Emily Bridges held dreams of racing for Team GB's women's squad. That's all but impossible now after British Cycling revealed it is to ban trans women from competing in women's elite-level events.
The competitive policy is predicated on the basis of fairness, and that's been the overriding determining factor in getting to this point.
British Cycling says the available science shows male puberty gives trans women a competitive edge, but also admits the science is by no means definitive.
Given the paucity of that evidence, a lot of people will say, well, actually, this is just a policy based on prejudice.
We recognise the paucity of evidence. We recognise it's also a number of months since we suspended our policy to undertake the consultation, to speak to riders affected, to speak to the wider cycling community. We're very empathetic to the athletes directly impacted. We will continue to speak to them, we'll continue to support them and make sure that they feel welcome within the cycling community.
Speaking to me last year, Emily Bridges said her testosterone suppression, strictly following British Cycling's policy, more than mitigated an advantage. The policy was subsequently suspended.
Has there been any stage at any time where you thought, I'm just going to race in men's races?
I can't do that. I can't race in men's anymore. It's not something that I'm prepared to put myself through again.
In a long statement today, she was scathing about the new policy, describing it as a violent act from a failed organisation, indulging in culture wars. She claims the research isn't being viewed critically and ended by saying, I don't even know if I want to ride my bike anymore. While today's developments have been well received in large parts of the cycling community, one former pro-cyclist, now journalist, believes if British cycling acted to protect fair competition at elite level, it is misguided.
They can't show that there's a competitive advantage because they're on that field of play. There are no trans athletes who are winning things. There aren't any, So you might get the odd trans athlete who wins a minor event, but if you go to something like the Olympics or World Championships, there is nobody there who's trans.
The new policy will be introduced later this year. British Cycling says it will be under constant review, especially if new scientific evidence emerges. Steve Scott, News at 10.
2 Kent hospitals had already been warned that the maternity care they offered was in need of improvement. You could say that. An inquiry found 45 babies who died could have survived. But when the hospitals in Ashford and Margate were checked on again in a few months later by the Care Quality Commission, things got actually worse. They have now been judged inadequate.
As a first-time mum, Gemma Holland should have felt safe in the care of the maternity unit where she gave birth to baby Archie. Instead, she describes the experience as horrendous.
It was an awful experience, awful. He was neglected and I was neglected, and I had a C-section and I kind of just got left to fend for myself really, and like I got left in a bed of blood, and see his health was at risk because he didn't get any food for the first night.
If you were to have a second, would you go back?
I was treated that badly that my partner is considering private.
And today it emerged the health watchdog considered shutting down the maternity unit at the William Harvey Hospital in East Kent. Its damning inspection laying bare multiple instances of inadequate care, including finding bloodstains on toilets, staff not routinely following infection control measures by not always washing their hands or using aprons and gloves while delivering care, and life-saving equipment not available in the right place, nor being cleaned and checked regularly.
It is disappointing. We went in quite some time ago, I think it was, and we rated them requires improvement, and we saw we continuously monitored and we'd seen some initial improvements, however, that weren't sustained.
The failure so alarming, the trust running the hospital has been given the worst possible rating, inadequate, even after it was ordered to take action to improve, after a review last year found 45 babies in its care died needlessly.
We will learn the lessons again. We have to learn the lessons. We do recognise these very serious failings and we will act on them.
But those who've been sacked by hospitals for whistleblowing say staff should feel they're able to speak out.
If you can't have a system in place where staff can feel safe and protected and encouraged to raise concerns, then I'm afraid what's happened and has been propagated and not appropriately addressed in East Kent is going to happen time and time again, I'm afraid.
In East Kent, questions remain over why failings still exist, and the trust is being closely monitored. At stake is the safety of this community of mums and babies. Sejal Karia, News at 10, East Kent.
The comedy actor and writer John Cleese was in court today at the hacking trial involving the Daily Mirror, not as a victim, but as a spectator. He settled his own claim with Mirror Group newspapers 7 years ago now in a separate case. The Mirror is contesting the case presently before the High Court, but John Cleese told us in his case he felt it was a bit like being burgled and left him being violated.
We've seen plenty of famous faces at tabloid court cases recently. Today, one of Britain's best-known comedians, John Cleese, here as a spectator, not a participant. A past victim of phone hacking by Mirror Group newspapers, he's interested in the case being brought by Prince Harry.
Why have you chosen to come along to the High Court today?
Well, it's a very important trial. This is only the second time in 20 years that there's been a proper hacking trial.
Mirror Group newspapers have admitted and apologised to you for phone hacking. Can you tell me anything about that?
Well, I didn't know much about it because when you're hacked, you don't know. And then a small sum of money, I can't remember, this was some years ago, and a letter arrived, and they admitted admitted what they've been doing. I brought it with me, carefully wrapped up in plastic. There we are.
Dear Mr. Cleese, I'm writing to apologise for the wholly unacceptable intrusions which you were subjected to by our former journalists. How does it feel to be the victim of that kind of unlawful intrusion?
I think it's a bit like I felt when I was burgled once. There's a sort of sense of intrusion and you feel slightly soiled, slightly violated.
You're known and loved as an actor and a comedian, but
by some people, yes.
Some, by many. Should we now know you as a campaigner for press reform?
I don't really want to be labelled as one thing, which the press tends to do, because I think that most people do several things in their life, you know. But I think this is very important. I think the country's in an awful mess at the moment, and I think we have to start, believe it or not, with regulating the newspapers.
Mirror Group newspapers say where historical wrongdoing has taken place, they've made admissions, take full responsibility and apologise unreservedly. But they say they will vigorously defend against allegations of wrongdoing where their journalists have acted lawfully. John Cleese is among those following the trial in which Mirror Group newspapers is accused of unlawful activity on an industrial scale. But their lawyers claim there's no evidence of any phone hacking in the claims, and board members deny there was a cover-up. Rebecca Barry, News at 10.
Now, there's been a terrifying end to a domestic flight in South Korea. One of the passengers opened an emergency exit as the plane was coming into land. Air rushed into the cabin, but thankfully, passengers were safely strapped into their seats.
This is a sight no passenger wants to see while in the sky. A door meant for emergencies forced open, causing air to blast inside. The blurred out pictures from South Korea show some of the 194 people on board the Asiana Airlines flight holding on to the seat handles for their lives.
He must have been trying to get off. Suddenly, he tried to get off and the crew went, "Help, help." So about 10 passengers went and pulled him back. The exit at the farthest back was open and we flew with that open for 3 to 5 minutes and then landed.
The flight had taken off from the South Korean island of Jeju around 11:45 this morning. It had almost completed its 1-hour journey to the southeastern city of Daegu when a male passenger opened the door while 213 metres above ground. A 30-year-old man was arrested upon landing, but his motive is not yet known. Under Korean aviation law, he could be jailed for 10 years. Miraculously, only 12 passengers suffered minor injuries.
The children were so shocked. Yes, they were so shocked. I was sitting at the far back, so I didn't know, but when I got off, the kids expressed dizziness.
Local media reported some passengers had fainted while others suffered breathing problems. Authorities could be seen carrying out investigations with the door still hanging open. Louise Scott, News at 10.
Amazing story. Now, oysters are not, it has to be said, to everyone's taste, but for fans, nothing beats the gentle, clean flavour fresh from the sea, except for one thing. Only 6% of oysters farmed off the British coast are actually fit to eat without being treated first. Once they are perfectly safe. Research carried out with watershed investigations found 700 times the EU safe level of the diarrhea bug E. coli was found. Environmentalists blame sewage courtesy of neglect by water companies.
Low tide is the height of activity at Whitstable Oyster Farm. They harvest up to 6 million of the molluscs here every year, but there's a problem.
The sea's a swathe of microorganisms that the oysters naturally filter. So they enjoy being out here and getting the water.
But I'm guessing then if they're fed by the sea, whatever's in the water ends up in them.
Yes, that's true.
As a result, oysters are a good indicator of how clean water is. Exclusive research by ITV News and Watershed Investigations has found worrying levels of E. coli, a bacteria often linked with sewage. For oysters to be safe enough to eat without treatment, they need an A rating, meaning 80% have less than 230 E. coli. Across a 5-year period, only 6 meet that standard. The same percentage have E. coli levels above 46,000, meaning they can never be sold, even if treated. 2 shellfish areas have recorded levels of 160,000, 700 times above the A rating. We asked marine biologist Richard Stafford whether sewage is to blame.
I think it's very likely that that's the cause. E. coli in any of the animals which we eat from the sea is never a good thing. It probably means they've been eating raw sewage. It comes with risks of things like norovirus as well.
Back in Whitstable, the blue-tit wild swimmers have a saying. Keep your eyes open and your mouth shut.
It's absolutely disgusting that we're in what should be lovely, clean sea and thinking, oh my God, I could catch something.
Southern Water says it's midway through investing £2 billion to update infrastructure. It also points out E. coli can be caused by things other than sewage, including agricultural runoff and wildlife. The oysters themselves are treated with clean water and UV before being sold. The process now takes twice as long as it used to ensure they pass strict hygiene tests.
And on heart, the oysters are as safe as safer than ever been. The amount of testing and risk assessments we do. The issue is the public perception and also the fact that we're closed for long periods.
Those closures caused by pollution outbreaks are costing James hundreds of thousands a year. The government says it's imposed the toughest targets ever to cut sewage spills, but improvements will take years. Meanwhile, an industry is struggling to stay afloat. Martin Stew, News at 10.
Now, British Airways has had to cancel dozens more flights from Heathrow Airport, and just at the start of the bank holiday weekend. The airline blamed the knock-on from technical failure yesterday. It's believed more than 80 flights were affected today on top of the 92 yesterday. Finally, 2 football teams with long histories will slug it out at Wembley tomorrow for the richest prize in world football. Not City or United, or dare I say, even Arsenal or Newcastle. No, Luton Town and Coventry City are playing for the place in the Premier League, worth a barely believable £170 million to the winner. No wonder then, excitement is building.
Traditional turnstiles, executive boxes from another era, and a patchwork of seating. There is no escaping that this is not what we have grown to expect from the lucrative Premier League. Luton's rusty home for more than a century may need repairs and renovation, but that hasn't stopped their remarkable rise on the pitch. Pelly Ruddock-Mapanzu joined Luton when they were in the non-league and is now on the brink of potentially playing in English football's top division.
It's been a long 10 years, man. I think I'm part of the furniture. I think I'm part of them old seats that have got no paint on it left. The fans have been behind us. The celebrations won't go on just for Saturday. I think it'll be all summer, them enjoying. I think the town will be popping in.
The Championship playoff is billed as the richest game in football, worth an estimated £170 million. This year's finalists can hardly believe they've made it this far. Just 5 seasons ago, Coventry and Luton were playing against each other at the bottom of the Football League.
You know, it's nice to see them, come up through the leagues with us, at a similar time, and yeah, it's been great for them. But at the same time, we've got a job to do on Saturday, and we've got to go there and make sure that, we give it all we can.
These school children have never seen their side play in the Premier League. It's 22 years since Coventry were last in the top division.
We were getting relegated, basically. Yeah, now look at us. No one would have expected this.
Very excited.
I'm going to wear this tomorrow.
I'm wearing my purple Cov kit tomorrow.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Just one match lies between their team and the Premier League. For the fans, like the players, it is as exciting as it is nerve-wracking. Amy Lewis, News at 10, Luton.
And that's it for tonight. Good night. Have a great weekend.
Everywhere will be lovely and warm today. You might even be tempted to go for a dip. Heinz Seriously Good Mayonnaise sponsors ITV National Weather.
Hello there, very good evening to you. It is looking good for bank holiday weekend and for half term as well. High pressure giving us a very settled start to the weekend, although we have got this sort of nuisance frontal system across the far northern parts of Scotland, thickening cloud and very patchy light rain for you. Elsewhere, though, in the rest of the sunshine, highs in Cardiff. Again, you're doing very well at the moment. 23 Celsius, 73 in Fahrenheit. A little bit more cloud around generally, I think, for Sunday, but still some long, warm, dry, bright spells. A little bit more cloud, particularly there across Scotland, where temperatures will be responding. So a little bit cooler for you. And for Bank Holiday Monday, again, it continues to be a dry story, but we are expecting an improvement there across the far northern parts and also the best of the sunshine, I think, probably across the far southwest. But as we look into next week, that cloud does tend to clear away and it's warm, dry, bright and sunny. You enjoy it. Good night.
Heinz Seriously Good Mayonnaise sponsors ITV National Weather.